And we are live.
All right, it's good to be alive. Time change and all.
Oh yeah, it's been actually a very active week between the time change and election. Wow, what a
I know it was a stressful, crazy time for some people. I don't get too twisted up over it. I mean, this is it's politics. What the hell,
I mainly watch to see what other people are doing.
Me too. Yeah, the time change is one thing that always gets me. There's two sides of it. A lot of people want to get rid of it. Daylight savings time is just a joke. I think that famous Indian blanket, Indian always says that only a white man would cut the top of the blanket off just to sew it on the bottom later. And that's kind of how I feel about time change. I think it's silly. I think things just get out of hand. But
when I was in Arizona, I loved not having daylight saving.
That's right. Yeah, there's places that don't have that, right? Yeah.
And the only thing I had to do is because while I was there, I had family that were like, "Hey, let us know what time to get in contact with you," because we have I think there's like a 1 or 2 hour time difference.
Pacific is 2, yeah.
So I would let them know, and then it became even more challenging when daylight savings came up. It was like, okay, that time you want to call me at, you may call me at, it may end up being like 6 o'clock in the morning if you want to try to reach me in the morning. So.
That's funny because, so I have my own little protest going on with time change. I have multiple watches. So I have my spring forward watches and I have my fall back watches.
I thought this was comical when you were telling me this story.
Well, so it's like a rental car. When you go get a rental car and you go fill up gas, the latch for the gas release for the gas door is in a different place in every car.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's kind of the same thing with watches. No watch is programmed the same. They're all, and it's just too much to remember between passwords and all this stuff that you have to remember just in daily life. So once a year when my time change comes around, instead of just fooling around with the instructions and setting the time, especially on my Sunto Core,
right? Oh yeah,
and some of the more technical watches,
the watches where you actually have to keep the instructions around.
Yeah, I just bought 4 watches, so I have 2 for spring forward and 2 for fall back. And all my friends crack up too. They think it's kind of kooky, but you know what? Hey man, I'm happy. I don't have to worry about changing time. I just change watches, so it looks like I get a new watch every year now. So
well, I think this year was the first time where I had to. So my equivalent to your methodology for keeping kind of mitigating the whole time thing is I have to remember what all devices do I have that automatically change,
right,
and the ones where I have to remember to go physically change them. And I never even really thought about it until this year, where I was like, okay, I for some reason, because I have a like you and your Sunto, I use the Casio Pathfinder.
Right,
it's something that was given to me before I deployed, and I used to wear it all the time. And then for the last few years, I've kind of done this this deal where I just wanted to go without a watch, and I got my time from either looking at my phone or
sure.
But unless you have that device on you, you're not keeping accurate time. You really.
Sure.
So between that and my watch, where I had to physically change it, computers or my phone I didn't have to worry about. But I tell you what, the one nuisance thing that I have that I hate changing the time on is the clock on my truck.
Right.
Because it's just located in a weird spot. And whenever I get in my truck, all I'm concerned about is just pulling out of my driveway and going wherever it is I'm going.
Now, mine changes real easy. Mine's just, you just push on the time and you go back or forward. It's really straightforward and simple.
I wish mine went backwards, but it's where it's located. It's not something that you can do on the fly like when you're driving.
Right.
You need to actually unbuckle your seatbelt, because the model truck I have has such a deep
the dash.
I mean, I have to reach so far to get it. You just can't get it easily. So that's my little deal with time change.
Yeah, it's funny how many things we have that are time dependent. None of them keep the same time, which I find insane. Everything's You can set them all, but they're always going to be a minute off, 2 minutes off, 5 minutes off. But yeah, so anyway, that's our time change thing. But what I think is this week, we generally don't like to do politics because it's a pain in the ass. It's just a headache.
And everybody, well, I mean, and everybody's ideas of politics are all different, and that's fine. That's the beauty of the United States.
But we live in a day and age though where people have gotten a little bit confused and they think they can attack you for what you believe and don't believe. And so it was really funny the night of the election. I just happened to be out at my truck. I didn't watch any of the polling. Mm-hmm. I didn't watch any of the returns. I didn't know who was leading, who was falling behind.
Right, I was doing the same thing.
Yeah. So there's a couple Beto signs in my neighborhood. Not very many. I personally don't put political signs in my yard because I don't want anybody doing damage to my property because that's the world we live in today.
Yeah.
But my neighbor happened to have a Beto sign in the yard, and I was out in the truck getting something out of the truck. And I heard his front door slam, and he's like, "Are you fucking serious?" And he's stomping through the yard. He grabs his Beto sign and just shreds it and tears it up. And I caught it on my security camera. And I shared it with everybody. It was like a funny moment. And, of course, I was giggling. I didn't, I'm not going to antagonize anybody, but I was laughing as I was walking in the house. But it's funny because he literally just came out there and just shredded that sign and just tore it up and threw it away.
But we will talk about him on a podcast, though.
Oh,
which
sure.
is forever.
I'm not going to name his name, but yeah. And I doubt seriously if he'll ever listen to this. But it's funny because a lot of people now are really getting very contentious. I have another friend. Here's the weird part. I have friends that are extremely conservative, but their kids are liberal.
Right.
And that goes to speak about their college education is what college really has turned them.
The education system.
The education system clearly has done that. I mean, we're not going to go into that, but what I think is funny is the highs and lows these people experience. Uh-huh. They're extremely high and they're fired up and they're very passionate and they're out basically.
And we're talking about the
youth,
the liberal.
Yeah, the liberals themselves for the most part, but particularly the youth in this one because I noticed that this friend of ours' son is in some kind of depression over the fact that Bino, what's his name, Bino? Beto. Yeah, I don't even think that's his real name, but anyway, that he didn't win. And so what I think is really interesting is how people respond and react. Because Harris County, I mean, it's a sad day for Harris County if you really want to know the truth. Harris County's been turning blue over time. It's a sanctuary city. We all know what's going on here.
Right.
But, we have a judge that was in that seat for 11 years. Like him or not, he does a lot for Harris County. He does a lot.
Yes.
During emergencies and stuff, he's a very front-forward guy. Mm-hmm. And he's big in the community. And, a lot of people bag on him because he's trying to save the Astrodome.
Yeah, that's
really the one that really gets him beat up a lot. But other than that, so it's not the fact that he got beat; it's who he got beat and how he got beat.
Right.
That's the real problem because he got beat by, we were talking about this earlier, how you apologize before you approach a subject. I mean, we're living in some really scary times in the sense where you can't even have a conversation. But he got beat by a young lady that has no experience.
Right.
She's 27. She's Colombian, but she's raised in America and went to Stanford. But she's working as a interpreter for a medical center. She's going, from Spanish to English.
If I remember
for media.
She's like 27?
27.
Yeah,
she's very young.
Who has no life experience.
No, well, not just that. She has no experience with law and civil government.
Yes, that applies to the role that
job.
she is now going to play.
Yeah, so you have to ask yourself, okay, she wasn't elected because she was better than the judge that was in the seat. She was elected because she was a young Hispanic girl and he's an old white guy.
So she didn't win a vote. She won a popularity
contest. And that's what these elections are turning into.
Right.
And it's sad because we've allowed young people to vote now, several election cycles. And we're learning rapidly that maybe we shouldn't let them because they're not doing what's civically right for the country.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. To that.
And
point.
I'm not saying liberal or Democrat or conservative. I'm saying if the guy, I don't care if his hair is blue and his skin's green, if he can do the job, he should be the one that wins the election.
I want to know what's on your resume.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
That's the whole thing.
What do you bring to the table?
Right. It's a sad day when the opposing, if an opposing party wins, And the first thing they do on the platform for their victory speech is to say how we're going to go after the other guys.
Right.
We're going to do this, we're going to do that. That's not what this country's ever been about.
Or some of the things that they target that are not even in the scope of what you got elected to do.
Not at all. And the fact that people rally behind that's even worse.
Sure.
And like I said, we're not going to go through a whole lot of this election thing, but the approach is what I'm more concerned about. I'm more worried about the fact that people are just making votes based on a popularity. Because the guy skates on a skateboard in a parking lot of a popular burger joint, which I don't even, did Whataburger support him, or did he just happen to be at a Whataburger? Because if I find out Whataburger supporting that one over the other, I'll probably, and that's my favorite burger place, by the way, but I'll end that.
Right.
It'll be over for me, because I'm not going to support somebody that's supporting somebody that, one, is a socialist, and two, doesn't know anything about government.
Right.
I mean, we all are fallible, we all have our faults, but if you can perform in a job and you have a resume that supports that, then you're qualified.
Well, and okay, to that point about supporting government is that their only idea of government is more closely related to mainland China,
right,
than it is the United States.
Right.
I have a problem with that.
Oh, I do too. The whole socialist aspect of the American government, or the American dream, is a real concern for me. Now, I will tell you, I firmly believe that both sides have done extreme damage and both sides are guilty.
Right.
They're guilty of a lot of things, because you have the haves and the have-nots, and you have a group of people that get in office that are flat broke, that are now multimillionaires.
Right.
We've been over this. We can go over this time and time again. That's not what the point of this. The point of this is the fact that these elections now are getting out of hand. In the sense, to the point where they're going to eliminate straight ticket voting in the state of Texas if they can.
I could see that.
Because to force you to go through the ballot, plus also the reporting of voter fraud with machines.
Because this year I saw a higher reporting record of people indicating that their votes were being changed over any other. Well, okay, since the past president, the 2016 presidential election, we had some instances of people claiming that their votes got changed. That claim went even higher this time.
Oh yeah,
and it started really kind of sort of before the poll. Well,
it was early voting.
Yeah, it was early.
Voting.
It showed up in the early voting.
Right. You started in the outlying counties. Because and thank God for the outlying counties, or we'd be overrun. A lot of people forget that we're in a constitutional republic and we're not in a democracy, and they think that majority should rule. That's not the case.
Mm-mm.
That's not the case at all. But yeah, so I think that going through this election and seeing what's happening in Harris County, I made a joke the other day that there's probably going to be a for sale sign in my yard, because I personally don't want to live in Harris County anymore. The flood thing passed, so that's going to go up. Our taxes.
Oh, the bond issue. Which is something else that Emmett would have. He got bashed because there's been several bond votes that he gets. He gets crushed for, but
Well, my concern is the current city management of Houston and Harris County is that how would I say it? We need a financial watchdog to look at the checkbooks and the receipts, because a lot of those people have been, especially the mayor, has been associated with
corruption. Oh yeah, Sylvester Turner. Oh my lord.
Yeah, and so we've got ourselves a problem here. They're going to charge more. They're going to take more taxes. Then he's saying that we're going to have to lay off and have a hiring freeze for the fire department because the Proposition B was,
Now I have family that's in the fire department, and that is a huge bone of contention. Like my buddy Chief, Chief retired from the fire department because he saw this
coming.
This coming.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to get out of that organization. I have a cousin's husband who's tied up in this thing right now, and he's already eyeballing. Hey, he's already pinned a date further in the future to where he's looking to get out. But so the thing that I was thinking about last night was okay, so we had some winners and losers in these elections. You'll have policies that got upvoted. You got some policies that just didn't make the cut. One of my concerns was, I'm always going to be for the person that's the best person for the job.
Right.
So regardless of what hat you wear.
Right.
Because like when we get in these conversations about liberal and conservative, I'm not the guy that wishes we were still back in the Stone Age, okay?
Right.
But I'm also not the guy that says, you know what, I'm okay with taking something from somebody else because they have an abundance over somebody else. I'm not that guy. So, but like with Cruz, okay, and I know that there's probably going to be some people who don't like Cruz for various reasons, ideology, whatever. He looks smarmy. I've heard them all, but for Cruz or whoever the incumbent is that won, and they end up winning a squeaker, is you need to find out why it was that
it was that close.
It was that close.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because now I'm going to look at it and go, okay, whatever dirt somebody threw out on you that may have affected why you got voted on, was that true or wasn't it? And if it was true,
fix it.
You better fix that shit.
Oh yeah.
Because you're not responding, and in my mind, you're not responding appropriately to when attack ads have been thrown out.
I think not just your mind. I think that's the right way. I mean, that's the right way to look at it. Because honestly, you're here to serve the people, not yourself. You're not here to serve special interests, which a lot of them end up doing.
Yes.
Okay. Now you do have to have values, and you have to have a value system, or it doesn't work.
Right.
Okay. So, the one thing that I noticed in the national election that a person in Minnesota and a person in Michigan picked up a seat that doesn't share our beliefs.
Are these the two females?
Yeah, the two Muslim,
I know.
The two Muslim females that are in there, and my concern now is going to be that they're going to be true to their religion, and they're going to legislate or make decisions based on their value system,
right?
Which may not necessarily be in sync with the American value system.
Now, okay, so I will say this is okay. If everybody's always looking for some advantage to help them in the popularity contest. So if you're a woman and if you're a Muslim woman,
right?
Okay, but that also gives you avenues into a demographic that a lot of people don't have. So you can sit here all day and say that, hey, you're Muslim. Now, I don't know how strong a practicing Muslim this person is, because I know a few Muslims that to take a term from somebody we know, they're kind of the Jack Mormon.
Sure.
I'm a Mormon in name only.
Well, when you show up with the bandanas and scarves and stuff, that tells me you're pretty deep in your religion.
You put on a pretty good show.
Yeah.
So again, it's one of those things where we're getting into semantics.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the thing is it's still a dog and pony show, no matter what. So if you're trying to portray some image, you're going to put all the garb on that you want that pushes people's minds in the direction you want them to go.
Sure.
And that's all I'm saying about that. But if you're a dirtbag and an incumbent who just barely won your office, you better drill down and find out why it was that you barely squeaked by. Because if you're a dirtbag, stop being a fucking dirtbag.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've thought about this a lot, and I'm just gonna talk about the Beto Cruz thing. Mm. And honestly, when I watched all the on-campus interviews and the street interviews of why they were voting for this guy, nobody made a good case for him, and nobody can say that. Now, honestly, I mean, I wouldn't spend another 5 minutes on this if I knew that it was close because of skill or competency. But when they were like, well, we'll give him a chance to see what he can do.
Right.
They didn't name anything he's done. They didn't even name any of his platforms other than social issues.
Yeah.
And government isn't run on social issues.
I'm not hiring somebody to sack groceries. I'm not.
Yeah. Well, not just that. Just somebody to stick their finger in the air and see what people want them to rule on, which is what's happening. And so that's what I'm all a little twisted up. And another thing that I think is interesting about this is how people respond. How people respond if their candidate doesn't win,
yes,
or if their candidate does win. So, like, for example, I'll say I voted for Ted Cruz, okay? I didn't have Cruz signs in my yard.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go out and shoot fireworks in my yard. I didn't go out and point at my neighbor and say, hey, you lost, better luck next time.
Right.
Or whatever else, other thing you can do.
We did all that shit on Facebook.
Yeah, that all happens on social media, but you know, I don't act that way in public. But the other side, you're outside in public, and man, they're like nasty. I mean, they're rude. Big time rude. And it's like, dude, get over it, okay? You're in public. There's a way you act in public.
Right.
Okay? Whether it's political, say your car breaks down, say you got fired, say you found out your daughter or your son's dating somebody you don't like. Does that give you the right to go out in public and be rude to everybody?
Right.
You just have to lock that shit down and deal with your life. You know, and I think that's interesting because when we look at this election and we look at what people have gotten used to for 8 years under the previous administration,
right,
and what they're facing under this current administration, they feel like the rules don't apply to them. They're going to act like an ass in public.
So, okay, so to kind of sort of, you bring up a very interesting point about just common courtesies that people have with other people.
Just being nice, decorum.
So, early this morning we went out for a freaking bike ride and we got to talking when we were all done, and I brought up this interview that I told you that I listened to, based on somebody made some comment about Tucker Carlson. Now, I barely know the person. I couldn't really quote and tell you what he's famous for. I just know that he's a personality on TV. But he happened to be interviewing somebody I kind of like listening to, Adam Carolla. Adam Carolla sometimes is a little bit a strain for me to listen to, not because of what he's talking about. I think it more has to do with his voice. But the dude
he's very nasally,
but the dude is intelligent,
very smart,
and just he brings up some very thought-provoking comments. So there was an interview with that Tucker was having with Adam Carolla. And I believe the guy's Dennis
Prager.
Dennis Prager.
Yeah, Dennis Prager. Yeah.
And so, this society where now, and you kind of alluded to it earlier in the podcast, was having to preface statements
before you make them.
Before you make them, because somebody may hear you say something that makes them think that you're something that you're not, a racist, or any of the other ists that people can call you.
It's a shock collar. It's a shock collar is all it is. It basically is a shock collar being put on by the politically correct.
And
it doesn't apply to them, by the way.
No,
it does not apply to them. It only applies to the perceived conservative viewpoint. It really does. I mean, you can be like vulgar, rude, nasty, as long as you're in that camp.
Mm-hmm.
You're fine. But the minute you stand up for a value you believe in, which I believe that's what this country was founded on, the fact that the freedom of speech. And it's funny how that vacillates back and forth between who's in charge and who's not. But that was an excellent exchange of ideas, because the way I'm hearing it now, or the way I'm looking at it now, is if you speak your mind and it's against the other side, it's like you're in communist China.
Right.
And China, for many, many years, is very repressed. Those people were very repressed. And you didn't say anything. Your neighbor would turn you in. Mm-hmm. Your family member would turn you in. I mean, it was...
very expressionless facial gestures, all that stuff.
Exactly. And that's what you live in now, unless your name is Jim Acosta, CNN. I swore I wasn't going to say his name. I wasn't going to use his name, and I won't anymore. But what I think is funny about that is I will say that everybody knows it's famous news by now. We're not going to rehash all of it, but he looks for any chance to get the mic in his hand, and he won't relinquish it. Okay? He'll get up there and he'll ask you questions expecting you to give him the answer he wants to hear instead of the answer that you're giving. Now,
or he's baiting you to. He's baiting you to say something that feeds into whatever narrative they're trying to prove or disprove.
Now, here's the sad thing, and this is in his mind. this is where power and perception comes in play. Okay, he believes, well, he's getting power because he believes people like seeing that. He thinks he's on a mission, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks that it's my job to expose this. When really people just want to see the train wreck.
Yeah, yeah.
When you start searching, you start looking at search analytics, everybody wants to see Sarah Sanders shoots Jim Acosta down. The president has this argument with Jim Acosta. So it's really not about reporting. It's really about watching the train wreck. It's the reality show perception that we have nowadays. I watch it because I think he's a rude ass. But the problem with it is the way it goes on is that he's getting more and more powerful through that. And it's not because he's a good reporter. Okay? He's just rude and controversial.
Yes. So there's a subset, and I actually only really see this primarily on Twitter, where you have somebody that I would probably classify these people as fanboys of people like Acosta,
right.
and anybody who has that, who wants to be the opposing voice of the current administration.
Right.
Is their viewpoint is okay, let's say that we saw a car wreck into a brick wall.
Right.
They would twist it in some way to where the brick wall just freaking owned to that car, right. or some fanciful tale that they make themselves feel good about their viewpoint.
Well, yeah, the thing that's annoying for me is on social media is you say that they'll use catastrophic language to get you to view it.
Yes.
Trump attacks Jim Acosta. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was not that way. It was the fact is, when you're in a room full of other people and you're there with the purpose of asking questions, the rules are pretty simple. You ask your question, you raise your hand, you get a microphone handed to you, you ask your question, the question gets answered, then they take the microphone and they hand it to the next person.
Right.
Because there was over 100 people in that room.
Right.
And this guy is grandstanding.
I tell you
again
what,
and again and again.
If there was ever a more perfect example of the book Animal Farm,
yeah,
it's in that press room.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
We're all reporters, but some reporters are better than other reporters.
And that's, for people that say they're fair and balanced, or for people that say they're after the truth or they're there to do what's right, no, they're not. Their actions give them away. Okay, if they were smart, they would have just had 4 or 5 people ask the same question over and over and over again, instead of letting this asshole grandstand. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to get a bloody nose. He's trying to get the bully to punch him. Right. Okay, that's what he's doing. He's attacking the bully. He won't go away. We've all been in a schoolyard. We've all seen how that goes. You get that little dude that will not shut his mouth, that keeps coming at you, because he knows if you hit him, you get benched and you don't get to play ball this week. Yeah, that was a big thing in school. You get these little kids run around and run their mouth at you all day long and try to start a fight with you or say something rude to you, knowing that if you knock them the hell out, you're done. You don't get to play. You're suspended, and you miss ball games. That's what we live in nowadays. We live in a society where the little man like Jim Acosta. I don't even want to say little man, because that's not fair. You got the guy that doesn't have consideration for anybody but himself and what he wants. That he's bullying the whole room. He's not just bullying the president. He's bullying the entire room. Okay.
And the thing that's crazy is that even though this event happened, that CNN gets their viewership goes up because of events like this.
Yeah, and they look at that as a positive.
Yes.
And again, it's the train wreck. Everybody wants to look at the train wreck. That's all that is. It's not that people approve. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I like to see Sarah Sanders gun these guys down. But I will be honest with you. You wouldn't want me in that room because I'd have you removed. I'd say, look, the rules have been explained to you. Okay? You get your question. We will give you the answer. Okay? Then you pass the mic on. If you can't follow those rules, then you don't belong in this room.
Right.
You just don't. I mean, and that's how that should be. And there should be a sergeant of arms. It shouldn't be a young female intern. It should be some big, badass 6'4" Marine.
Although I wish the microphone manager girl, the staffer that was there, when she reaches for the microphone, that's not a question. No. That is a hand it over without question, so she can move on to the next person. Right. You don't get to own the. That was the thing that was so surprising. So I was like, if she knew a little bit of small joint manipulation, catch that on camera,
Well,
that is YouTube gold.
That's where you get an ex-Israeli female in there.
Yeah, put
An IDF. You get an IDF
check.
You get an IDF trained girl in there, dude.
Yeah,
he'd be peeing his pants before it was over with.
That's
I think that's what they should do. I mean, we should write that in. You should just get some IDF girl in there because honestly,
the rules of engagement are when you're in here asking questions.
No, what I think is funny is everybody argues over the chop, the arm chop.
Yes.
Okay, or he pushed it away.
What is and what is not a chop.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have a semantics battle here as well because we're going to go back to pussy grab.
Sure.
Where we had a president that had a private conversation with a guy that was clearly a setup, it was a hit job, that was talking about grabbing somebody, and they went all up in arms. This guy actually touched her. He actually touched her. Should he be charged? Excuse me. Should he be charged with assault? Should he be charged with disorderly conduct? I mean, honestly, if it was the other way around, she should have flopped. She should have done like an NBA player.
That would have been. I'm gonna pull. I'm gonna pull a LeBron.
I'm gonna do a LeBron.
That would have been.
Wow.
That would have been hysterical.
You know, and so she wasn't thinking. I mean, that's.
And the announcers go, "Oh my God, he's down!
Yeah,
he's down!"
And I'd have been like grabbing the arm. I mean, I would have played that up like nobody.
Referee jumps in, starts doing the 10 count.
10 count. I'm telling you, that's about how bad it gets in there. But you know, honestly, it's doing what's right. And doing your job to me, is what you see for integrity for a reporter.
Right.
When you see a guy, I used to work for a company, and this has just been a nightmare for me. So this person, the president of the company, okay, felt like if somebody was rude and out of line, he thought that was passionate. So he felt like the more you bullied, the more you were passionate and believed about what you were doing.
That's one outlook.
Dude, that means that guy is disruptive and he's self-centered.
Right.
Okay, he's forgetting that what he's asking for in front of a group of his peers needs to be available to all his peers as well.
Right.
Okay, not just me, because I want or I need. And so, you know, we're starting to see that happen in businesses. We're seeing that happen everywhere now to where...
Sort of cannibalistic.
Well, nobody wants to mess with the loudmouth. Okay, the loudmouth. Now, if you're, I hate to say this, but if you're of conservative manner, and I'm not talking political party, I'm just talking about you're reserved, and you don't speak up,
right,
and you choose not to verbally spar with somebody, or physically spar with somebody, basically the dogs attack you.
Right.
You're basically a wolf in a pack now of a bunch of alphas. And honestly, that quiet person is probably the biggest alpha of the bunch. He's just trying to be smart, you know. And then what ends up happening is you pay the price for it. But a lot of people misconfuse. That's terrible. A lot of people confuse passion with rudeness.
We're trying to start a word here. It's okay.
I know, right? So yeah, they
misremembered.
There you go, misremembered. But they confuse passion with rudeness. Okay. I can be passionate, but you're still an idiot or you're still a jerk. How you behave in public is an important thing, because without it, you have all kinds of anarchy. And you know, nothing. You can't hold a meeting together if you don't have rules.
Right.
And if you're not articulate enough to make your point without getting upset or violent,
right,
then there's something probably on your end that you got to deal with. If you're talking to a group of management or somebody that doesn't want to hear what you're saying,
mm-hmm.
saying it louder just doesn't make it that they're going to listen to you.
All they do is you're helping them remember who you are.
That's exactly it. And they've already made up their mind. And if you're not recognizing those signs,
right,
then you are in deep trouble. And when something does happen to you, hey, you brought it on yourself.
So you're in an environment that is not receptive to your ideas.
Right. And sometimes it's timing. You can be as right as the day is long. But a lot of times it's timing. So if you're showing out somebody,
mm-hmm.
this is where the Acosta thing gets interesting. Because all he's interested in is showing out the president.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't objectively asking questions. He knew what he was doing. He was asking hot topic questions. Mm-hmm. And he's just playing this role. If he was literally being objective and doing what was right and reading the room, he would have went a whole different way. He wouldn't have done this to create a sensationalist moment for his resume. And so we get a lot of that going on where people just show up and they just want to start shit. And you see that a lot with the other side as far as the political activist. Okay,
guy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and real quickly is he basically injected himself into the news.
Yeah, that's all he does, and that's all he's about. And it's really sad that he's setting an example for people to go out and do that. You see it in the grocery stores. You see it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You see it in customer service lines. People view this, and they go, he's right. I'm not going to take this shit. I'm going to be rude. I'm going to be a rude bitch in the store. Now the poor employee is standing there taking a beating, and you are not going to win unless you give in. Right. But giving in isn't good enough anymore. Now people want to go beyond that and they want to get you fired.
Yes.
Yes. And this is a real problem.
Or just like a really harsh public shaming, because I see that happen on a lot of I mean, aside from the normal social media sites, is that like the neighborhood ones like next door.
Sure.
Where I'll see the same kind of exchanges go on there.
Oh yeah, and it's people have just lost all sense of decency in the sense of how to handle things. And because you're barking doesn't necessarily mean that you're right. Right. You may be completely offline, but you've convinced yourself and you've worked yourself up into a fevered pitch of just mad dog crazy. And you know what they do with mad dogs? They just put them down.
Put them down.
You just put them down. And the problem is there's nobody to put them down. There's nobody here that says, hey, this behavior is not going to be accepted anymore. Yeah. We're not going to tolerate it. And we live in that world now to where you can't take action into your own hands and protect yourself.
Everybody's afraid to be the executioner now.
Well, they don't want to be prosecuted or lose anything, or lose their job.
Right.
And right now, that's the big thing, is that nobody wants he's negative, we can't have him. Bad press, he's got to be gone. Nobody stands behind their people anymore because they don't want any on them. I mean, that's kind of sad. I just look at that and I go, we just went down the wrong road.